How's it going, everybody? Caden is here for the Realms of Hyrule podcast, New Day Edition. Yes, the day is upon us, and Realms of Hyrule 8 will soon see the light of day. How soon, you may be asking? Well, we'll be finding out later in the podcast. Of course, that's not the only thing we're discussing here, as we have a few things on our list, including some information about the history and setting and location, some of the races that will be coming over from 6 and 7 that weren't there to begin with. Joining me on this podcast today are my cohorts, comrades, and colleagues. With high power level Marik, over 9,000.
It's always over 9,000. What's up, everybody?
Yes, it is. The still and hopefully here Canadian Nay.
Hey there.
Good to hear from you. And the new owner and administrator to Realms of Hyrule. Don't ask how she did it. Mana.
Hey.
Our first topic of conversation on this Realms of Hyrule podcast is the races. Marik, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you guys all the races that we're going to have in RoH 8. So first, obviously we're going to have Hylians because duh. This time around, though, we're going to integrate humans with Hylians. So there can be both rounded ear Hylians and pointy ear Hylians. So have whatever Hylian you want. You're just not going to have a human because that's redundant.
Can Hylians have one long ear and one rounded ear?
Oh my god.
No.
Not maybe
it got cut off.
Yeah, unless it got hacked off or they have some weird ear disease, I guess.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify because I know someone's going to make that.
We still have to approve profiles, so we can take care of that. We're going to have Sheikah back, and they're going to be limited in number like in past boards, but we're going to have a little bit of a better system with dealing with that, but you guys will figure that out later. You can still be a Goron, you can be a Zora, we're going to have Kokiri, they're going to be able to leave the forest again, but as you'll learn later, their situation is a little less happy than in the past. You can be a Gerudo, desert people, but you can't be a male Gerudo because only Ganon can be that, so don't ask. We'll say no. You can be a Stalfos. You can be a bony man. But I swear to God, if someone makes Sans and Papyrus, you're done. You're done. There is none of that shit.
You put it out there, and now it's going to happen.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Someone's going to try.
I'm not going to allow it. All right, so those are all ones that have kind of basically been standard on ROH before. Stalfos are a little newer. And the next two races are ones that are brand new to ROH, so we're excited about that. It gives people more options. So first one is Lizalfos, or Lizalfos, or however the lizard people. However you decide to say it, you say it that way, I don't care. They're basically the lizard warriors that are always an enemy in most Zelda games. Have fun making your own lizard person. That's always good. And then we're going to have the Twilly race, which is from Twilight Princess. So that's what Midna and Zant are. And then all the sweet particle magic and stuff like that. They're also going to be limited, like Sheikah, under the same system. So there won't be hundreds of thousands of Twilly all over the place. We're going to learn about later about why they're here. And yeah, unless you guys have anything, that's pretty much the races that we got going on.
Well, should we talk about why certain races didn't make the cut from previous ROH?
That would be great. I think pretty much the synopsis between Moblin, Deku, and Rito was because there weren't enough people being those races for the most part, and then some of the races are just kind of dumb. Because most people, I think there was one Moblin in the past, and I think I was the Moblin. There probably were more, but they just weren't very popular, and we wanted to be able to bring something new, as well as offer more and different options. Same thing with Deku. People weren't really any Deku. And We're not in Termina or connected to Termina, which I'm jumping a little ahead with that, but there's no Deku Kingdom this time around.
Yeah, and with the current setting, there's no place for the Rito, really.
Not really.
Yeah. Which doesn't mean that maybe Rito could maybe be added in the future, depending on where we go as a
It's an
board.
open possibility.
Yeah. All right. I'm done being a racist.
Okay.
So next was setting.
Now, there's going to be a fairly long topic. I really can't just go into all the details right here, or else we'll be sitting here for hours, and after a while we'll just kind of start rambling. It's not fun for everybody, so I'm just going to give a little bit of a quick synopsis of how things are going down. Early on, when we were kind of deciding what the setting would be for this RoH, we kind of discussed back and forth what we were going to do, what were some of the ideas we would have, and it was ultimately decided this particular Realms of Hyrule 8, it's not going to be set on any one game or in any particular timeline. We're taking a bit of a more vague setting, which is going to mix in a lot of names and locations and areas from multiple games. Nay will be speaking further about these locations. I'll drop a few names here and there as I'll go along, but he'll go into more detail. Now, this doesn't mean that some of the more popular areas won't show up on this Realms of Hyrule. Far from it, actually. Death Mountain, as you'll know, will be there at the start. Some of the more famous locations will also be there, just slightly different. Now, as far as the history goes for this particular site, we're going to be taking place about 50 years ahead of a battle between Link and Zelda against Ganondorf. Now, what happened in this battle, who won, who lost, not really much is going to be known as pertaining to the roleplay. All that is known is that they all just sort of disappeared. What is known is Ganondorf was building up an army. This army was going to attack and try to take over northern Hyrule. And Ganondorf, he had set off to separate northern and southern Hyrule at the Tenteri Desert. He had set something off, and southern Hyrule and northern Hyrule are going to be disconnected, and southern Hyrule is going to be something we're going to come into later. But for now, we're just dealing with northern Hyrule. Ganondorf's army attacked northern Hyrule. A huge, long war pretty much went on for about 30 years, known as the 30 Years' War. Peace was settled upon, which essentially meant that Ganondorf's army kind of took over what was once Castle City, and it is now called Harkinian Ruins, named after what will be known as King Harkinian for this particular setting. And what was left of the Hyrulean forces pretty much returned to what was left of their former lives. And considering this, where we are now, as conjunction to everything else, is just 20 years after the war ended and 50 years after Ganon, Link, and Zelda disappeared, most of northern Hyrule is shit.
It's an apt way of describing it.
Most of the major areas were destroyed. The only thing left were some villages here and there. Azuto Village, which is controlled by a Chamber of Elders. Hyrule Village have a religious ownership known as the Order of Hyrule, which are a cult-like group that worship the Light Sage, and that is led by the Holy Father. There are some other areas as well. There's a place called the Blue Maiden, which will be in a swamp, and it's controlled by the Zora and Lizafo, or lizard people, or whatever the hell you want to call them. Death Mountain, as I said, is around, and inside Death Mountain is going to be the Talus Caves. That's where the Gorons are. They got mines and pit fights there. And there's an outpost that has it's a quasi-military zone and some highlands. There's the Forest Haven, and as you can see, we're kind of divulging into locations, which I believe Nate will pick it up from here.
All right. So let's start with Harkinian Ruins, since that's the first thing that people probably want to hear more about.
Yes.
As Caden said, that it was formerly Castle City, and when Ganondorf's army, after Ganondorf vanished, marched on the city, they managed to take it, slay the king, and pretty much ruin the city. The Harkinian Ruins are now the primary base for Stalfos. They have their own zone because obviously without Termina, the Ikana Kingdom isn't available. There will be some Gerudo and Lizalfos running around there too, maybe NPC Moblins because they're not playable. And Hyrule Castle, Hyrule Palace, has been renamed to Castle Dragmire after Ganondorf Dragmire. And yeah, the royal library has been burned, so a lot of knowledge has been lost. Characters can't know about ancient history. Moving out from the Harkinian ruins, we have Hyrule Field. Now, this time around, we have separated Hyrule Field into East Hyrule Field and West Hyrule Field. This is because each location is slightly different territory. East Hyrule Field is the largest settlement there is Kasuto Village, which is similar to Kakariko Village in the past. A lot of names are an amalgamation of locations in a bunch of different games. So Kasuto Village is taken from Adventure of Link, I believe.
Yes.
And yeah, so it is. Yeah, it's also the homeland of the Sheikah this time around. And there are also Hylians and other races. It's ruled by a Chamber of Elders, and they generally are freer, but less developed than Western Hyrule Field. In Western Hyrule Field, we have Rauru Village, which is ruled by the Order of Rauru, as Caden mentioned. And the Order of Rauru sort of sees the Light Sage Rauru as sort of a prophet, sort of a demigod, maybe. Not really that deep into it, but they still worship the golden goddesses, of course. And yeah, the Western Hyrule is more developed than Eastern. It's not, like, amazing. It's definitely not a place you'd want to live because, as Caden mentioned, Northern Hyrule is pretty much shit. But like it's better than the East. It's got more farmland. It's slightly more developed because the Order of Rauru has kind of helped in that regard, even though things are less free over there. As Caden mentioned, we have Death Mountain with the Talus Caves. Talus Caves is basically an amalgamation of the Talus Cave from, I think, Four Swords, Dodongo Mines, Goron City. It's that kind of location. We have the Trilby Highlands, which is a new location. It replaces the Death Mountain range in Row 6, but it's also sort of it is a mountain range. It's got rocky, plantless terrain closer to Death Mountain, and as you travel further south and east, things get a little greener, and there are a bunch of different mountains from the series there. There's Snow Peak, there's Mount Eldon. Dragon Roost is there if we ever do add Rita. And yeah, and the most important thing, the most interesting, is the sublocation for that location, which is Hera Outpost, which is built around the Tower of Hera from A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. And it is a sort of military camp that's kind of evolved into a settlement, a more permanent settlement. And the tower itself is sealed and has been sealed since basically since Ganondorf disappeared, and no one's sure why the tower is sealed. Yeah, the other locations, we have Midoro Swamp, which is the swamp location. Now, it's important to mention the Zora are now located primarily in Midoro Swamp. One of Ganondorf's monsters, a giant slug, he's now stationed in the Water Temple, and the slug is oozing all this venomous gunk that has basically polluted the Water Temple and the surrounding area, Lake Hylia, Zora's domain, to the point where the Zora can no longer live there. They've created a settlement called Blue Maiden at Midoro Swamp, and the Lizalfos are there as well, so there's some sort of territorial disputes over there, especially because the two races obviously took opposing sides in the 30 Years' War. The Zora's primarily backing Zelda and Hyrule, and the Lizalfos being with Ganondorf. So that could be some potential, interesting RP situations for Zoras and Lizalfos. Yeah, and we have the Haunted Forest as well, which is basically the Lost Woods. The Kokiri Forest itself has burned down. 30 Years' War. A fire started. No one knows exactly what started the fire, but it could be assumed that maybe one of Ganondorf's soldiers did it. And the Deku Tree was burnt down and killed. But in his final moments, he blessed his Kokiri children with the ability to leave the forest, and they were able to sort of settle around Hyrule. However, a small residence of Kokiri remains in Forest Haven on the outskirts of the Haunted Forest. So the Haunted Forest is open to RP. And of course, there is the Tentari Desert. This place has two sublocations, Gerudo Valley, which of course the Gerudo live, and interestingly, it also includes the Twilight Enclave. Formerly the Arbiter's Grounds, Twili have sort of converted it into their homeland because Ganondorf's forces during the Great War shattered the mirror, and the Twili on this side of the mirror were trapped here. So their descendants and they themselves are now here. They came over initially to help in the Great War, and Rauru, or whoever the Light Sage was at the time, blessed them to be able to survive in the Light World without forcibly becoming shadows. They don't become shadows, like they're able to be solid in the Light World. And I think that is all the locations, unless anyone has something to add.
But nay, can Twili still become shadows if they want?
They can at will.
Such information.
Awesome. Pause for effect.
I think I'm excited about all these locations. Like, I think it's cool. You know, I think we need to make it pretty clear that, like, we're not sticking to any game timeline. We're not sticking to any past RoH timeline. And so, like, it opened up a whole kind of new world for locations. And I think that it's really going to make, especially in this setting, which is, you know, I mean, as Caden so perfectly put it, is shit. That, I mean, it is. I mean, like, there are no, like, major hubs or major, like, huge metropolises like we're used to. Like, we're used to our castle cities or our grand libraries or whatever. Like, these are more like villages and, like, you know, outposts and stuff like that. And I think it's gonna bring a different flavor that we haven't had before. And I'm pumped. And you guys will see, once you guys get to see, I think, the actual, like, written down descriptions, you'll see that there's hints of what we could do in the future with these monsters that are kind of floating around everywhere and screwing things up for everybody.
I do have a question as it relates to the locations. Will there be a map?
For the moment, the locations descriptions have, like, for example, Death Mountain says, to the south and east are the Trilby Highlands, and to the north is an unpassable icy wasteland. So, for the moment, we have written directions so you can gauge the general location of the things, and hopefully we will get an actual map at some point.
Cough, cough, the admin who can draw things. Cough, cough.
If that's the case, it won't be me drawing it. It will actually probably be my husband that does it, since he knows what he's doing.
Woo!
That's probably for the best.
Yeah.
All right. Any more discussion for our locations that we have for this Realms of Hyrule 8?
No. Expect quests to take place in our locations at some point in the future.
Of course.
We have a few possible locations for possible quests.
And I would say that as far as Southern Hyrule goes, I mentioned it briefly, we have a few ideas already for what's going to be there, but nothing concrete. And I just wanted to say that it's probably going to be a while before Southern Hyrule opens. So we're all going to pretty much be sticking to the more shit area for a while.
We're excited about the setting, though, because it's sort of like a post-apocalyptic kind of setting. Not exactly, but it's what was different from Realms of Hyrule 6 and 7.
Right.
With the more generally peaceful tone.
I mean, the joke we've been throwing around is that, you know, which I think is, like, kind of a fair description, but I don't want people to get stuck on it. The whole, like, it's Fallout, like, Hyrule, you know, Fallout : Hyrule. And it kind of is. I mean, like, everything's kind of, the world is rebuilding itself, and the world is, like, it's still hurting. And I think that's cool, because there's still, we've, like, basically inherently built tension into the world from the beginning instead of having to, like, just come up with it later and force it to happen.
Nay, would you like to continue and speak about the battle system? Give a little bit of a tease for what's coming up with that?
All right. Well, the battle system, first and foremost, don't get too excited because it will not be available with the initial release of the RP. We're still developing it. We're trying to make it really simple and easy to follow, but still nuanced and interesting. Still a feeling of progression. Still items you can get from quests and the shop, as well as skills and things. The major changes are, well, instead of 5 attributes, we are having 3 core tenets of the Zelda series. We feel it's kind of thematic: power, wisdom, and courage. With only 3 rather than 5 options, builds can be a bit more diverse in that one character with specializing particularly in power and wisdom could be a mage, another one could be a rogue. It's depending on also the gear you own, because weapons are going to be their own thing rather than a skill like ranged combat and melee combat. Additional to that, we have made the leveling system static with levels instead of EXP gained every 10 posts, say. So now every 50 posts you gain a level, and each level you gain 2 skill points. We've separated skills into combat skills and utility skills to avoid min-maxing, or the want to min-max. So every character will not necessarily... every character can be both combat ready and quest ready or fun ready. So each level you get a combat point and a utility point. You can use those to raise a combat skill and a utility skill, or you can put both into raising a base tenet, which is power, wisdom, and courage. So you can raise one of those each level, or one of each skill, or one of skill of each type. It's going to be a simpler system, we hope. We're going to basically sort of put some division into weapon types, because obviously, in reality, a person who knows how to fire a bow is not necessarily the same, has the same skill in throwing knives or bombs. The system more accurately reflects that, while still being fairly simple. We have magic, obviously. In any row setting, we're going to want mages. We have, of course, throwing weapons, which include bombs, boomerangs, rocks, I guess. If you're a Goron, you could throw rocks. And, of course, missile weapons, which are your bows and crossbows. For melee weapons, we have bladed weapons with polearms. Polearms are interesting because they're a melee option with added range, attack at 10 feet instead of the usual 5 feet, and unarmed fighting. So that's stuff to think about.
So I think it's
as you plan your characters.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that since the battle system will not be rolling out at release, you won't need to have a battle sheet to get your profile approved. So I just heard 1,000 voices cry out in joy from the future.
This time around, I believe the battle system is going to be entirely optional anyway. You can still name your archetype even if you don't want to participate in the battle system. Your archetype being your kind of character class, if you want to name it, because it's kind of fun sometimes to just think of a name. The battle system itself only be mandatory if you want to participate in quests. And with static levels, this level cap goes up to 20 at 1,000 posts. 21 technically if you start at level 1, but every 50 posts you gain a level. So even if you don't have a battle system sheet, you can kind of gauge what level you're at compared to other players.
Sounds great. I do believe y'all did a wonderful job on making that battle system.
It's still under development.
Well, I'm just saying, it's a lot better than what we had.
But this time around, I should mention, we have slots for items and skills, so that characters can't be a walking arsenal once they've cleared every single quest. So you can own as many items as you want, but each time you enter a quest, you have to declare what you're taking with you, and that's limited. You have your head slot, your body slot, all that stuff.
You can't have the bag of holding with you everywhere you go now.
Dang it.
Yeah, it's a bitch. Well, would you like to? Is there anything else about the battle system you want to talk about, or would you like to leave it for next time, eh?
I think that's it for now. Just that Erez and I are currently still working on it. I should name drop Erez so that people are aware of his contribution.
He is part of what would be the administrative council of this Realms of Hyrule. So yes, he is part of it. Mana,
Yes?
would you like to kind of go over a few details, maybe about what we're planning on for the next week or so? Well, let's see, this will probably drop Wednesday, so the next several days.
Alright. So the next couple days, we're looking for a quick release, as the hype has certainly become too great to ignore, as we were readily expecting this with the creation of the RoH chat on Skype. We're able to announce an opening due to the team that we have now and the creative minds all working together. So with that, I'm able to excitedly announce the opening of RoH will be this Thursday, April 28th. Only for, at the time, registration and browsing, but I'll announce more as we keep going through the days. What we're going to be able to see for the 28th is, again, people are going to be able to register. They're actually going to be able to move around the site, see what we're talking about here, like the locations, the races. And, of course, we're going to be missing the battle system right now, but we can move through that. The one thing I do want to acknowledge for everybody is aware, the site is not aesthetically pleasing right now. We're working on it. I do have my husband working on some really good art the guys have seen. I have not... Well, I gave a bit of a teaser to it, but not much, on the Facebook page. But if you guys see items changing in the background, don't be alarmed. It's just we're trying to get everything working for the functionality of the site so everybody can move smoothly through it, not be bumping and crushing into everything. But, of course, any bugs, glitches, or unusual things that are appearing, we have to be notified. So I'm actually going to throw the boys out here, but notify me, Cam, or Greg, because we're the ones who can actually react quickly enough to talk to the architects. So I won't go too much on who they are yet. But otherwise, stay tuned for more information. I'll be updating Facebook a lot to relay what we're going to be doing in the next couple days, since I'm technically not going to be here.
That's right. Yeah, you're probably leaving, let's see, this is going to drop Wednesday. You're going to be leaving tomorrow. And
Yes.
you'll be gone for most of the weekend.
Yes, so you guys will have to manage everybody coming in, and I will be not here. I mean, people can get a hold of me if necessary.
We'll try not to burn anything down.
We'll all have shotguns and weapons at the ready.
I would expect it. Otherwise, I'd be disappointed.
Of course.
I've already burned something down. Is that a problem?
God damn it!
I'm burning something, but it's, never mind.
Dang it, Cam.
I'm sorry, man. My nerves kind of got to me, man. I had to do something.
We'll get you checked out, buddy.
Okay. Well, with all of that being announced, is there anything else that we need to discuss before hanging up here?
No, I just say get excited, get pumped, ask questions. Please ask questions. If you don't understand something or something is not clear, we're not perfect, so ask questions, clarify things, and get ready to have fun. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited too.
I'm thrilled.
I'm sad. I'm not going to be
You sound
here for
thrilled.
I'm pretty pumped. I've already got my kind of initial 2 characters planned out to an extent. I'm ready to go.
I believe at this point we're all ready to go. And actually that kind of does work well. It's a good segue to the end of this podcast. I would like to thank everybody for joining me and everyone for listening. There will probably be semi-frequent updates to this podcast in the coming days and weeks. Stay on the lookout for that. Follow the Facebook page. Keep in contact with us. There will be links on the site. I hope everyone gets their characters ready and are excited to start again. Thank you for listening. I want to thank everyone for being here, and go fuck yourselves.